sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. And today, y'all, I've got a guest that I am excited about. I've been wanting to have her as a guest for at least a year. She's one of my favorite people in the whole world. And she's one of my dear friends, and I pay every time I'm around her. She is my psychiatrist. Her name is Dr. Raynia McGee, and she is among the most charming, delightful people I've ever met. And she's here today. I want you to listen because we're going to talk about the impact of mental health, specifically ADHD, anxiety, depression, and how it can impact people in business and maybe how it impacts your kids and everything else. So, hey, welcome to the show, Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Walker. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I am looking forward to sharing this time together with you and your audience.
Well, good. Thank you so much. So let me give a quick bio here. You were born in rural Alabama, and you're born in, and then you went to Spelman College where you studied biology. And then you got a master's degree at University of Texas in environmental science. And then you went on and got your medical degree in Nashville, and then got your psychiatry residency at Prisma Hospital in Columbia, South Carolina, where you were the resident of the year. And then you practiced with the VA in rural South Carolina, and now you've got your own private practice. Yes. And when I first met you, we bonded because I guess the technical term is, I was a fucking mess. I was anxiety and depression overrun. I was wearing an eyepatch because I had a busted retina. And you and I talked, and you're like, I had one of those too. When you were working at the VA hospital, wasn't that right? Tell that story, if you would, that awful story of how you ended up getting a busted eye.
Oh my goodness. And it wasn't even traumatic. Literally, it was Mother's Day weekend, and I was in the shower, and all of a sudden the lampshade process that they talk about started. And I was like, okay, what is going on? Do I have something in my eye? And then, I put the medical piece together, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. First, I wanted to make sure I wasn't having a stroke. So I was doing my mental status exams. And then I was like, okay, we need to go because I've got to get to the emergency room before this totally detaches. And of course, by the time we got there, it had detached. And did you get to wear a cool eye patch too, or did they fix yours in one shot? Yes. Oh no, I had to wear an eye patch for a while before I was able to, at least let that light in. Yeah. So it was not a process that I would wish on anyone. No, it sucks. It really, really sucks. And we immediately bonded over that. So tell me your story. I mean, rural Alabama, grew up, went to Spelman. I mean, tell me, take a couple of minutes and tell me how you got to where you are today as this successful psychiatrist who helps all kinds of crazy people like me. Oh, well, like I said, born and raised in Alabama, Roll Tide, Roll. I am an Alabama football fan. And have always been interested in science. Just didn't know exactly where I wanted to go with that. So when I went to Spelman, majored in biology, loved it, but also had a love of environmental science. Also met my wonderful husband while I was in college. Yep. So we got married, and we did the Air Force for 10 years. So he served in the military. So I traveled with him, and that's how we ended up in Texas. I was able to get my master's degree, worked in the environmental field for a while, and in my 30s I said, you know what, I'm ready to go to medical school. And wow, did your husband's jaw drop when you said that, or had you been planning and talking to him? He's like, holy shit, what? Well, no, he knew that I'd always wanted to be a physician. So he was not surprised, but he was also 10 years into the military. So he's like, if I'm going to get out, we need to do it now. So once I got accepted, it was from medical school to residency, and we had our kids with us, and he was supportive all along the way. Um,
Wow. So you already
I
had kids
decided,
when you were at medical school.
oh, yes, yes, yes. And I decided on psychiatry once I did my psychiatry, what we call rotation.
Yeah.
Before then, I had planned on being a surgeon.
What attracted you? What attracted you to psychiatry?
Two things. One, seeing people in my family deal with mental illness and
Yeah.
not wanting to get it treated for certain reasons.
Yep.
And two, seeing a lot of my friends and family, or friends and colleagues that were military, that were coming back from deployments, and what their
Ugh.
family and what they were dealing with. And I was like, we
Ugh.
need more people, um,
Yeah.
to see how actually psychiatry can change someone's life for the better.
So what is the main, what's you've been practicing psychiatry now for how long? 15 years?
Yeah, since for sure 2011, 2012.
Okay.
Um,
So 10,
yeah,
11 years.
so for a while.
And so what surprised you about what you're doing now versus, what you were thinking it would be like 10 or 12 years ago versus now, the business and what you do?
Oh, wow. What is surprising to me now is the lessening of the stigma of
Hmm.
approaching someone for mental health treatment.
Hmm.
Um, Before, it was definitely a little harder to get people to not only come in, but to stay the course for treatment just because they
Ah,
were ashamed
right.
of getting treatment. So, over the past couple of years, of course, that has loosened up a little bit.
What's caused
And
that change? You think? Is it media? Is it media awareness? Is it what?
well, a global pandemic, several
Okay.
years of social unrest. Um, so I think that
Several
had a
hundred years
lot.
of social unrest, but yeah, certainly, right? Yeah.
You will be honest. Yes, I think that that had a lot to do with it, and actually, some people just speaking out on it more
Hmm.
was helpful. So,
What's the
there
hardest
is.
thing? What's the hardest thing about what you do?
Leaving it at work.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah. Um, because of what you hear, what you treat, if you
Oof.
have a heart and you want to serve and be compassionate, it is hard to shut that off and
Hmm.
just go home because
Yeah,
you take your patients with you. So
yeah,
that gets hard to do.
yeah. So let's talk about this ADHD thing that I am the condition that I am blessed to have. I tell people it is a blessing. It's something that, however, I attribute it being like a Ferrari, right? My brain being a little bit like a Ferrari. I don't mean that in any kind of super way, but
Yes,
just as long
yes.
as you keep it tuned, that
And
some
you
bitch
got to
is
stay in the lane.
awesome. You can haul ass, right? It's great, right? But as soon as you don't keep it tuned, it's sliding off into the ditch in a heartbeat. So, for people that don't know, what the hell is ADHD?
Um, ADHD actually stands for Attention Deficit and Hyperactivity Disorder.
Okay.
So it is a disorder, truly, where there's chemical imbalances within the brain that cause difficulties with attention and hyperactivity.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the person who can't focus, can't stay on task, can't get things done to completion, really poor with organization and
Mm-hmm.
details. Um, People who don't like doing things that require sustained mental effort over 20, 30 minutes, but also the person that is fidgeting, moving, can't sit
Right.
still, tapping.
Tapping their foot, moving their
Yes,
fingers, playing with a pen.
chewing on pens. Yes, all of the above. And so when we see those individuals, we look to see, are they predominantly inattentive? Are they predominantly hyperactive? Or are they a combination of both? Because you
Mm-hmm.
can, as you say, be gifted with all of that at one time.
Right. And that's, I think I've got both, right?
Mhm.
You
Yes,
have my permission
yes,
to
yes,
discuss my case with all of my audiences. Okay, I've got that. So
yeah,
it's
yes,
funny.
yes.
I was self-diagnosed because my son was diagnosed with having ADHD, and
Mhm.
his psychiatrist was explaining to us what it was. And, at the time I was 18 years ago. And we were just, oh my God, my oldest son has got something wrong. He's going to struggle the rest of his life, blah, blah, blah. And she's telling the news. And after the meeting, when we're trying to get our arms around what this whole thing is, we were getting ready to walk out the door of the office. And my wife, basically, she pointed her finger at me. She said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, during the meeting, she said, "You played with your pencil. You kept kicking the trash can. You got up to go to the bathroom twice. You were fiddling with your water. What the hell is wrong with you?" And I said, "Were you in the same meeting as me?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where the hell do you think Walker gets that from? Our son, Walker. Where the hell? Is it, Raynia, can one inherit it? Or is it just..."
Oh, no. Absolutely. That is, without question, the biggest risk factor, genetics, almost up to 50%.
Wow.
Yes.
More likely in men than women, or both?
More likely in men, almost twice as likely in men. But it is often easier to diagnose the men than it is the females, because they are often the more inattentive. So they're the daydreamers. They're the ones that will be looking at you in the face, but their mind will be on random things here or there, and you don't see them. So they're not the ones that will normally get into trouble per se as their children. They're the ones that will just continue to slide by until later on. So that's how it can show up differently in your boys than with your females.
Got it. And so if somebody wonders whether or not they have it, what are some things that they would be experiencing, I guess, because the only brain most of us ever lived in is our own, right? And so whatever we're experiencing, we assume is normal. So what are some things that somebody may say, I think I have that? And some people joke about, oh yeah, I've got it, but they don't know. Is there things somebody can do to tell?
Well, one, when you're looking at the various symptoms that we talk about, being able to, like I said, pay attention, focus on details, follow directions. Oftentimes that is seen in childhood.
Yes.
And so, so you start thinking back, okay, was this something that I struggled with in school? Did I get in a lot of trouble in school for different things, for not being able to stay in my seat, not finishing my homework? And then as you become an adult, it changes and morphs a little bit, because then by the time you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever, as your case, you're married with kids. And so it may look more like your spouse having to remind you of things over and over again.
Right. You never remember a damn thing. Or, oh my God, I can't send you to the grocery store. Even with a freaking list, you'll screw that up.
Yeah.
Right.
Or forgetting to pay bills, like, those types of things. So you see that, as well as like I said, not paying attention to your spouse, like having a conversation and then 15 minutes later, totally not remembering what was said or what was agreed upon.
Oh, wow.
You can see that as well. Difficulty with remembering names and people that you've spoken with.
Oh, well, that's absolutely got that. That's I could just wear a little. People like, I've met him 15 times. He never remembers me. Well, shit. I got this gift, so I didn't remember you.
Yes, and oftentimes you see, I will ask my patients, okay, are you a procrastinator? Will you wait to the last minute to do something because you need that structure and that press of a deadline to make you get something done?
Interesting.
Yeah. So those are the things I start looking for, or I would be mindful of if I were an adult. How many times are you losing your keys, your wallet, your phone, your children, your clothes?
We left Johnny back at the gas station. I have a friend who's got 6 kids, and they left one of their kids at a gas station one time. They were 10 miles down the road before they realized they left Junior at the gas station.
Yes. And so I'm telling you, we're not making this up. And oftentimes my adults, by the time they come to see me, either their spouse has sent them or said, my wife or my husband has said I need to come in because they are working very hard to keep me
Right.
organized or
Right.
straight. Or very much like your case, you will see your child diagnosed, and then you will start to put together, wait a minute, I was
The
just like
same
that.
damn way.
Yes, yes. And then it becomes a little more comfortable to come in. And then we talk about
Yeah.
all those symptoms. Yeah.
It's
So,
interesting because I found my parents died in the last 5 years. Mom died a couple of years ago. We were going through her stuff or my parents' stuff, and she'd kept my report cards from high school. And I made a mistake of beginning to read my report cards, and I was not a great student in high school. I made B's and C's, occasionally an A, but the teacher's comments were like, he's not trying. Walker gives little to no effort. And I'm like, and I remember at the time, I was like, I really did think I was special needs, and nobody would tell me because I did not learn like other people. It just did not happen. But even reading those report cards 40 years later, knowing that everything turned out okay, it almost brought tears to my eyes just because I was brought back the feeling that I got when I read those things. And I was like, what am I supposed to do?
yes.
Didn't know how.
Yeah. Yep. So, and oftentimes that is a very similar feeling. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? I'm working twice as hard and I am barely keeping up with everyone else. But smart, intelligent, creative, just as anyone else. It's just that your ability to manipulate the information that you have is different.
Right. And reading a book, if I read a page of a book and I have very little comprehension, or not, I understand I'm reading it, but my memory of it is just crap.
Yeah. Yes.
So what are some things that outside of medicine that people can do to begin to help them? Some people can do, or everybody could try to do, to help themselves.
Okay. So if they're not doing medicine, or if they're not seeing a therapist, because sometimes I recommend both.
Yes, me too.
One is structure. Because if your day is organized and you know what you're doing when, it gets much easier to not be distracted by what's shiny, what's loud, what is coming in. I would also, keep reminders on your phone or whatever you're using to remind you that things need to get done, and elicit help.
Right.
Alongside you to help you remember to do things, and learn your best learning style.
Tell me more about that.
So, for instance, some of my ADHD patients who have businesses or are in college or whatnot, they realize that they learn better verbally.
Yes.
Versus sitting down reading. And they learn better when they're up and moving versus being seated and having to consume information. So once they learn that, then they can say, what works best for me is to listen to my lecture over and over again while I'm doing something else in my room. Staying busy, but still internalizing the information. So in that way, you're able to retain the information that you have.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is that multitasking? Is that what you're saying?
It's the multitasking. It's the stimulation of both what's going on mentally and moving, that fidgeting, just that movement that you like to do.
Yeah.
Just using it in a better way.
It's or more effective. It's funny. I used to use I've had a series of, probably I've had 50 stress balls in my life because I just liked it. I used to just like to do something with my hand. I used to smoke before that because I just liked having something in my hand. But the stress ball was healthier, except I kept ripping the covers off the damn things.
Well, and Walker, let me add one more thing in terms of like what you can do. But on the other side, for those people that you work with, or people that you live with, if they communicate with you, you need the headlines and you need it delivered quickly
Ah,
in
yes.
terms of the communication. Because you realize if they start talking about something and it's going on and on, 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, like you're
I
gone.
can't do it. Yeah, I'm done. Can't do it.
So just tell them, hey, what's the key points you want me to remember? Give it to me, and then I can do it. But you will get lost in all the fluff and
Yeah.
details if
And
it's
tune
if
it out.
it's yes, you absolutely will.
Are
Absolutely
there
will.
are there things that can you aggravate ADHD? Can you take what you have and make it worse by behavior? In other words, I see my children on the freaking Snapchatter machine, right? Some people don't even know this is a
Yes.
phone, but they spend a lot of
Mhm.
time like this.
Mhm.
And does that exacerbate or make worse, or is that just some shits people say?
Oh, no. We're looking at data. It's almost a mixed bag. For some individuals, it works very well for them to have that visual stimulation that keeps them engaged, which is why you'll see some children and some adults with ADHD that can sit for hours in front of a video game.
Yes, right.
Yeah, because they're seeing, they're looking, they're deciding, and they're also moving their hands. But remember, when they're kids at that age, that frontal lobe is still being developed.
Right.
And so that is the trade-off in terms of saying sometimes it can be negative if they're still trying to learn
Right.
information and the brain is still trying to develop. So I will always say just put a limit on the time.
Yes.
But if they're going to use it, an hour
A little bit at
here,
a time.
30 minutes there, yes, they don't need 4 or 5 hours sitting there
Yeah. So what
doing it.
about
No.
somebody, because I find that my wife gets really pissed about several things that I do, but one of them is that when I'm watching television, I will often have I'll have my phone and I'll either be looking at Twitter or somebody will say something on the television and I'll go, what the hell's that? And I'll go look it up and da, da, da. And she's like, what the hell's wrong?
Mhm.
And why aren't you paying attention? But I am. Am I,
Yes.
that's just what, thank you. I've got this recording. I'm going to
Yes.
clip it and send it to her and say, leave me the hell alone. So
It's the background chatter that is making you hone in just a little bit more on what you really want to focus on.
which may be why music in the background when I'm trying to do work
Mhm.
helps too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And for some ADHD patients, the silence is worse. Like because then you get caught up in your thoughts.
Ooh. So I have experienced once we began to treat my ADHD, all of a sudden that I don't know if it unmasked, but it made me all of a sudden much more aware of anxiety and depression. And are those things often connected? Do they? Does someone with ADHD? Do they often also have anxiety and depression? And are those things related? Does one relate to the other?
Well, it is very interesting that you say that because anxiety is the most common comorbid mental disorder that goes along with ADHD.
Yeah.
Up to 20% of patients who have ADHD have some aspect of anxiety associated with it, which will sometimes make it difficult to tease out what's the anxiety versus what's the ADHD. But yes, the anxiety is there. Chemically, we're trying to see if there's a link between the two, but just think on the ground what that looks like for someone who is trying to stay abreast of
Yeah.
everything, on
Oh,
top
yeah.
of everything, and you're worried about, am I going to get this done on time? Where is that? Who's going to yell at me? Who's going to be upset at me if I
Oh
don't
shit!
get this
There's a
done?
squirrel, and then
Yes. So it can breed this just being on edge of maybe someone always saying, I'm going to do this wrong or not do it right, or I'm going to miss something. So
Interesting.
I will always look for it if I see a patient with ADHD.
So there's this misconception that I hear a lot, and you may hear it too. And you just do adults; you don't deal with children. But a lot of people come to me and say, I don't want my child. They say he may have ADHD, but I don't want to give him medicine because that'll take away his personality. And which I say, you're right, because look how it's taken away mine. Right.
Yes.
So, but what is this thing about people being afraid of the medicine taking away their child's personality? What is that from?
Uh, I honestly, I want to blame us as psychiatrists and mental health providers in terms of not sharing enough information in terms of what these medicines are meant to do,
Yeah.
and how they work. Because I still get that question. The medicine is going to make me be a different person. It's going to change my personality. It's going to change my brain in the end. I'm like, no, it's
Nope.
not going
Still
to
same old you.
do
Sorry, it won't do that.
all of that. Right, right. Not at
Wish it was that
all.
easy.
So,
Yeah.
so I think some of it is just the sheer lack of information in terms of knowing what the medication or medications are going to do.
I tell my
So I
friends if
try to
they
dispel
notice that
that.
I tell my friends if they notice that their kids are zombies or whatever, chances are they're on the wrong medicine or the wrong dose.
Yes, yes. And I will tell my patients too, and you've probably heard me say this, if we get it right, you should really feel like you're not taking anything at all.
Right. I mean, not only do I say that, I mean, I
Like
believe that.
in
Yes.
in the sense that you're going through your day, you're being productive, you're doing what you need to do. I mean, you still forget things or still
Oh,
get
yeah.
upset or anxious about things, but that's normal. But,
Yes.
you should not feel medicated.
Right.
So talk to your provider and say, okay, maybe we need to make an adjustment. Maybe we need to decrease so that you can get those emotions back.
One of the things that I read, and I think I believe, is that people with ADHD often are great empaths, that we can
Mm.
understand other people faster or better than us. Is any validity to that, or is that just me thinking that's the case?
You know, I have not seen any data on that, but I would definitely say that it makes sense, because from what I've been able to see and what I've read, our ADHD patients, one, you tend to be so much more creative.
Yes.
So you just have that thing about you that makes you think outside the box, that makes you pull in other people that maybe others don't recognize or don't
Mm-hmm.
see because you're constantly scanning.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, you know, you're definitely more courageous because you can tend to be a little bit more impulsive. Like, I'm going to
Yes.
try
Right.
this and I'm going to do it.
Well, let's just see what happens. Hell yeah, you just nailed my whole life philosophy. Hey, let's try this. Hey, y'all, watch this.
Yes, 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 yes. And you also tend to be the most adaptable. If something comes up, you can change and
Right.
flip on a
Yeah.
dime and do something else differently. And and those are qualities that I always like to bring out with my patients and say, hey, these are things that are good and you can channel them into a way that can make you very successful.
So, what would you suggest for somebody that's trying to manage somebody? Right, they work in a company, they're running the company, they run a sales team, and they've got somebody who's obviously ADHD. What is something that the manager needs to know, or what's advice you might give him other than tell your freaking sales guy to go to the damn doctor and get his ass on some medicine?
Well, remember, like I said before, communication is key.
Yep.
Realize that this is the person you've got to give a specific set of assignments to within a specific time and say, get this done here, get this done at this point. Discrete periods of assignments.
Got it.
Because if you just say, get this report done in a week and get back to me, you may not get it, or if you do get it, it may not be the quality that you want. And it's not because of their effort. That's what, I always want to convey. These people are highly intelligent, and it's not that they're lazy. It's just this is how they learn. So be clear and concise with what you give them to do, and give appropriate feedback.
Right.
Say, this is what you need to change, this aspect here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work on
right.
this.
Specific. Right.
See if we get
Don't just say this sucks, start over. Right.
No. Specific, so they can focus in on that one thing and improve it. And that helps their morale. And it also ends up giving you a better product in the end.
That's really great. I had a manager one time that he would give me a project and he'd say, do about a third of it and then come back to me. And then we would look at the first third. He'd say, "You're on the right direction," or, "Hey, I think we're headed off. Let's go do that. Come back when you're 3/4 of the way done." And then
Yes.
feedback along the way, instead of saying, "Finish this, bring it to me on Friday," because I could have gone 32 ways in the wrong direction by then. So, and I know it feels like a lot, but a lot of it's just building up the confidence and the confidence muscle that you really can do this and understand what the person wants, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And be open to the individual giving you feedback in terms of saying, you know what, can I do it this way? This makes more sense to me if I reframe it. And you may be surprised at what you get. There may be a whole other creative bent that you never thought of.
Interesting. So what are some things that those of us who are gifted with ADHD probably that might make our situation worse? Is there things that we can do that we would be doing that would be a mistake, or that would make our focus less, or would do? I don't even know what I'm asking.
Well, here I'll start off the jump. Stay away from any other substances.
Right.
Stay clean if you can. Limit your alcohol. Any other substances, we have to get those off the table because that can exacerbate your symptoms for sure. Take a look at what you're eating and make sure you are physically active. You have to put that energy somewhere because it's going to be there. So you may as well use it and better your health in the end. So I would definitely recommend those things. And again, don't be afraid to have accountability and have someone come alongside you and say,
"Oh, that's
hey,
great.
You got this done. Great job."
Or, "Hey, I'll meet you at the gym," or, "Let's go run together," or whatever that is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny because 2 or 3 years ago when you and I were working together and I was very depressed, had a bunch of shit going on and was real down and was much heavier. And I didn't have the energy or the will to go work out, which was the only thing that, well, not the only thing, but that was the main thing that could help me on my own. And so it was not until I think you probably prodded me to say, "Get your ass to the gym," in your nice, kind, gentle way. And I started going and I started lifting weights and running again. And it's made a major difference just having that outlet for my energy and quite frankly, a more, I don't say instant gratification, but a shorter gratification window. Lifting weights is awesome for gratification.
Yes, absolutely. And it helps both the anxiety and the depression, so exercise, because I'll say, growing up, we had PE, I'm telling my age.
Me too.
And it was a given. And that for some ADHD kids 20, 30 years ago would be how they could reset and burn off some of that energy.
Wow.
And then be able to do well in the latter part of the day.
Interesting.
So that physical activity is key.
Okay. And the foods we eat, sugar make it worse?
Oh, sugar makes it worse. Just because of the crash, the up and the down that you get. You would think that caffeine makes it worse, but that's only if we have medications involved, but it can be quite helpful when used in appropriate amounts.
Yeah, they call it poor man's Adderall. I've heard it. Poor man's Adderall is coffee.
Yeah. So a little bit of caffeine can definitely be helpful first thing in the morning, or when you've got to sit down and get something done. Have a nice strong cup of coffee. Wait 15 or 20 minutes, and then
what happens. And so I will speak from experience. Coffee's good, but it ain't nothing as good as Adderall.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is
That's
true.
just my own personal experience. That's my experience anyway, right?
It can be more effective when used appropriately.
When
I will
used
say that.
appropriately, that's right. And so when should somebody seek a doctor? When should somebody go, shit, I need to go see somebody about this?
I tell my patients by the time they come to me, they are already struggling. And I mean struggling in the sense that their relationships are suffering, because they can't ever show up somewhere on time,
Mm,
or they, like I said, they've forgotten to pay a bill that wasn't on automatic draft,
mm, mm.
you know,
Yeah.
or their business is starting to suffer that they may have started,
Mhm.
but it's because they're also starting a business and raising kids and
Yep.
being a spouse and taking care of family members. There's just too much on their plate. And when things start to kind of fall apart in multiple areas, that's the key with the diagnosis. You got to see it at home, you got to see it at work or school, you've got to see it socially. It is it's an equal opportunity offender in
Right.
the sense that it
Right.
shows up in all areas of your life. So when you're working hard and you're like, why the hell can I get it together?
Yep.
Go in and see someone.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And,
Mhm,
and where's how would somebody do you I know you've got it to
mhm,
get to you, somebody's got to be referred by a doctor.
mhm.
Is
Yes.
that most psychiatrists need a referral in from a doctor, or is that just something you do?
Most psychiatrists do because we're considered a specialist. Like you just
Okay.
don't walk in to see a cardiologist
Right.
or, a pulmonologist. And that is because what is key is doing the medical workup and making sure that something else
Right.
isn't causing your symptoms, because other things can. We want to
Yeah.
make sure you're not hyperthyroid or hypothyroid, or we want to make sure there's not underlying diabetes or another adrenal issue or something else that's going on that can cause similar symptoms. So we want to get all that out of the way before you get to us. So
It's
normally
awesome.
that's the first way.
That's awesome. So, all right. So, you were going to look up a book or two that somebody could read to learn more about this gift. Do you have a recommendation there?
Yes. So one book that I like, and you talked about, you used a phrase that, am I broken? But there's a book called Your Brain's Not Broken.
Ah,
And that's in Your Brain's Not Broken, by Dr. Tamara Rosier. That's Roiser. And it's strategies for navigating your emotions and your life with ADHD. So that provides a lot of good information. And if you are in a relationship with someone, or married, there's a book called The ADHD Effect on Marriage, how to understand and rebuild your relationship because of what ADHD can do to relate in relationships. And that's by Miss Melissa Orlov, Orlov.
we'll
So
have
those are
links to
two
both
that I
those
would,
in the show notes, guys.
yes,
So if you missed that, they'll be in the show notes, and there'll be a link where you can order it on Amazon. So cool. Thank
yes,
you.
yes,
So,
yes.
Dr. McGee, where would somebody find you if they wanted to talk to you or know more
Mhm,
or invite you to be,
mhm.
because you're such an awesome guest on their podcast? Where would somebody find you?
You can find me at a website, www.blackpeopletreat.com. That is a website that I have created with Dr. Lori Givens Best, who's a colleague of mine, and it's a database of physicians of color. If that is something that you are interested in, of course, it's not for everyone, but representation does matter.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, so you can find me there. My profile, how to get in touch with me, where I work, all of that information is there.
Awesome. So blackpeopletreats.com,
Yep,
correct?
all one word.
All one word. All right. Awesome. Dr. McGee, I cannot thank you enough. No BS sales team, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you had, I will once again give my shameless plug for you to go to Apple Podcasts and write a review. It really helps. I'm trying to. Apple really rewards once you get over 100 reviews. They give you much more exposure. I'm at 77. So help a brother out and give me a review. The stars are cool, but write words in there. Even if you write Walker sucks, that counts. So write a review. If you take a picture of it and send it to me, email it, walker@walkermckay.com. I'll call you or email you and I'll give you a special treat that you will like. So hook a brother up. Take care of me. Take care of me, please. Dr. McGee, it is a pleasure to have you on this show. And thank you for all the help you've been to me. And I know you've been a help to the No BS sales team too.
Oh, thank you so much. Anytime.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to No BS Sales School podcast. If you haven't already, please take 1 minute to write a quick review for the show. It really does make a huge difference. Also, subscribe to the show and please forward this episode to somebody else who needs to hear it. As a bonus for listening, I'm going to give you access to a free mini course, 7 expensive sales mistakes you're making and what you can do about it. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com and get access to the free mini course. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast.